Bezos Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Bava Basra daf Ayin Zayin, and we're discussing about. Well, let's just finish off what we were discussing yesterday. Um, Remember, yesterday we were discussing. There's two types of kinyonim. One type of kinyon is called the mesira. We actually hold on to something. Let's say this animal over here. This animal over here in the picture. So you can't lift the animal if you want to buy it. And in you can pull the animal. That's true. You can pull the animal, but there's another way to be kind to the animal is with mesira. Mesira means you just hold on to an important part of the animal. For example, you hold on to its bell or you hold on to its saddle. That's called mesira. And there was a machlekes between Rebbe and the Chachamim. Is mesira? Does mesira? Rebbe holds mesira works. And Chachamim say, no, you could only do Meshicha. Meshicha means you have to pull it or cause it to move. So the Gemara wanted to say, Lema Abaya v'Rava the Amrei Rebbe. Abaya and Rava, who say that Mesira works in the Rishus Harabim, they were only that Mesira is such a powerful type of kinyan that it can work even in the Rishus Harabim. Right? So since Rebbe discussed that Mesira works on a ship, and we talked about that it was in the Rishus Harabim, on a boat. It was in Rishus Harabim. You're trying to acquire a boat that somehow is on Central Avenue. So Rebbe said it wouldn't work pulling the boat. You have to hold on to the boat. So that works in Rishus Harabim. But the Chachamim say, no, you have to pull it. You have to pull it to the service road. So according to Abai and Rava, that say that Mesira works, so then Abai and Rava both hold like Rebbe. And really, Abai and Rava is going like the minority opinion, not like the majority opinion. So the question is, does Mesira work in a Rishus Harabim? Is it only Rebbe who holds Mesira works in Rishus Harabim? So the Gemara answers, Amar Ravashi, if they said, go acquire Lake Chazek v'Kanei. If the owner, the seller said to the buyer, touch the boat, hold on to it, or hold on to the animal, hold on to it, do Mesira, hachinami. Everybody agrees it works, even in Rishus Harabim. But the argument is, the seller said, for some reason, he said, Leich Mishoich Uknei. I want you to pull the animal. I want you to pull the boat. So what did he mean? What did the seller mean? Did he mean Mar Savar, according to the Chachamim, Kepeda? He was very pedantic about it. He says, I don't want you to Mesira, the thing that I'm selling you. I want you to Meshicha, pull the thing that I'm selling you. Only then you can acquire it. Mar Sava, but the Rebbe says, no, Mara Mokim Hulai. He's just showing him where the item is. But it's up to the buyer to use whatever kinyan he wants. So if he wants, according to Rebbe, even though the seller said, I want you to do Mashiach, he wasn't so particular about it. You could, the seller, the purchaser can use Mesira, and that's the argument over there. So that closes out the sugi before. Now we go to a new discussion, which we discussed before. How do I sell you a debt instrument? Let's say somebody owes me money, and I want to sell it to you, right? So that you have a right to collect it. So we learned before that there's an opinion. There's an opinion of Rav Nosson that held that in order for me to sell you my note, my debt instrument that I had against somebody else, so I have to write another star on it that's saying that I'm selling it to you. And it's not enough that you hold on to the note. Now you're holding on to the note, you have a right to collect on the debt. No, you have to have a contract between me and you that you're purchasing the right to collect. Papa said, if a man sells a star, a note instrument to his friend, he has to write another document that says that I'm selling you or you're buying this note with all the rights to collect on the note. Amar Ravashi says, Amrita Shmaitza Kamed Rav Kahana, and I said this din to Rav Kahana, and Rav Kahana told me, Tamid because of Hachi, The only reason why you can do that, you can sell a dead instrument to somebody else, is only if you write another document. So it's like you're writing a document on a document. But if you didn't write a document, you just the purchaser of the dead instrument just did misira. He just held on to it like honey. He wouldn't acquire it. So why not? What's he buying? The piece of paper. He's obviously buying what's written in the paper, which gives him the right to collect on the loan, on the debt. So why do you need to write? You need to write another document that you're purchasing a note instrument. And says the Gemara, Amali, so Rav Kahana responded to me. Rav Kahana said, in Lotzer Velotzer, if you don't write another document that you're buying the note instrument, then what you essentially purchase without that, if you just made Hagbah, right, on the note instrument, you basically have a piece of paper to stuff a soda bottle with. In other words, to use it as a stopper. Because in order to purchase the power to collect on a note instrument, you have to, of course, make a hagbah, masira on the note instrument. Plus, you have to have a document from the seller that sold you the right to collect on this note instrument. So that is the opinion of Rav Ashi. But Amar Amemar said, Hilchas of the halacha is, and this is what it's called. We go to Daf Ayin Zayin Aleph. Oisius niklis b'masira, that to acquire a note instrument, that's another name for a note instrument, is called oisius. So if I have a dead instrument that I want to sell it to you, all I have to do is give it to you, and that's it. Kerebi, like Rebbe, not like Rav Nelson. So, like Rebbe said, you don't have to write another document that you're buying this document. Amalei Rav Ashi la Ameimer. So Rav Ashi asked Ameimer, Gemara, Oisvara, is this a tradition that's the halacha? Oisvara, or is you have some logical reason why you don't need to write another document? So Amalei, so Rav Ashi said to Ameimer said to Rav Ashi, Gemara, it's a tradition. I don't really know the reason why. Really, maybe Rav Ameimer, in his own personal view, he felt that in addition to the oisius, you have to write another document. But he had the halacha is that just Mesira Nof would work. Amar Rav Ashi said Savara Namihu. It makes perfectly sense. Because think about it. If I have an outstanding debt instrument, somebody owes me money, and I want to sell that right to you, so by me writing another document that I'm selling this document to you is words on words, because the document itself, the collection document, is a word document, and I'm writing another document to sell this document. So that sort of doesn't make sense. That's what he says. The oisius, the Rav Ashi says, oisius, a document is milininu. It's just words on a piece of paper. Umilu bimili loy mikanyam. And words with words are not sellable, because if you're giving credence to the first document, the note instrument, so that should be sufficient enough for the purchaser of it, all right, to give him the right to collect. You don't need to write another document that you're selling this loan document. It just doesn't work. So the Gemara Veloy. Is that true? Is that true? I'm going to give you two examples of a document and two halachas about documents. A man wants to give a gift to somebody, right? And he says, he's the guy that I want to give the gift to, the person that he wants to give the gift to, let's say the field, is not around. So he says to a third party, Zechu besada, I want you to acquire the field, not that you're acquiring it on your behalf, but you're acquiring it on behalf of the person I want to gift it to, because he's not around. Leploini, that person. I can acquire something on your behalf if it's for your benefit. So that works, even if you're not present. And then the person said, I want you to write a document that this soda belongs to that person. Now, a shtar makes it more like a home run type of gift. Just acquiring the soda is, it does have, you acquired it, but the shtar makes it like, wow, it's recorded and no questions asked. So what happens? The guy was zoicha with the field, but he didn't write the star yet. The gifter can retract from the star, giving the star, but the field he can't retract, because once this guy took the field or said, I'm going to take the field, like with Khalifa, and he did a kinyan that he's taking the field on so and so's behalf, you can't retract that. But as long as the star was not written up, you could retract on that star. That's the first halacha. Another halacha is, but what happens? He said, "Almanash shetichtiv lo yasashtar, shetichtivu lo yasashtar." The gifter said, "I am not gifting this field to such and such a person unless there's a star attached to it, unless there's a document saying that I'm giving the gift." Oh, so then, as long as you didn't write the document, then you can retract both on the document and the field, because the field gets only acquired to the third party simultaneously when there's a star. And as long as the star was not written up, so then the gifter can retract from what he wanted to do. So those are two halachas, but this is the point. I'm telling you, there are three halachas regarding a star. Trey hada amra. Two, we just discussed. I just told you two halachas about a star. But there is another says in kodam moicha v'kosav star. Wow, let's say a guy needs money. He's desperate for money. The banks are closing in on loans, and he needs the money. So he wants to sell from his possessions to his friend. So sometimes he finds a scribe, and he writes a star mechira that he's selling something, so that when the person that he wants to sell to, when he finally meets him, he says, I have the document here, and here it's written up. So you could pre-write a star. We go to Ein Zayin Amud Beis. Like we learned this elsewhere. A moicher, a seller, could write up a star, even though the purchase is not there. And this, could be a problem, because what happens? He loses the star before the purchaser actually purchased the item or transferred money. And so the purchaser has found it, and he'll say, "Oh, I bought it. Here, I'm holding the star." But since the moicher, the seller, wrote up the star already, that's his loss. So then, kevan shehichsik azeh bakarka, since the purchaser, if this case that the purchaser made a chazaka, an acquisition in land, so then doesn't matter. Nikna shtar b'chol makam shehu. He automatically acquires the document, because the document was pre-written. You see, until now we've been discussing documents that were not yet written, so you could retract on that. But since this sale comes with an automatic document that was pre-written, so as soon as you made the chazaka on the land, you automatically coined the star. Now, why is that so? Don't you have to make a separate kinyan on the star? Like you have to lift it up? But the truth is that when you purchase land and you make an acquisition on land, any movable item associated with that land is automatically yours. You don't have to make a separate kinyan. So if you buy a field, let's say, and you make a chazak on a field, the tractor on the field is yours. You don't have to make a separate. That's called kinyan agav. V'zuhi sheshininu. That's what we're saying. Nechosim she'ein lehem achrayis metaltalim, that you can't put a lien on, right? Nechosim that you can't put a lien on, niknem im nechosim sheyesh lehem achrayis, can be purchased along with nechosim that have achrayis. In other words, if you buy a field, the chesed shtar chazaka, if you do chazaka or shtar chesed on a piece of land, you automatically, along with it, own the movable items that you were trying to acquire, along with the field. So since you were machzik in the karka, you automatically get the document that was pre-written. So the Gemara's question is, so you see, to acquire a document, you don't need such great maisa. Even doing nothing, you automatically could acquire a star. So what the Gemara is saying is that even without Mesira, without doing a Maisa in the document, even without doing a Maisa, why shouldn't just a document be enough to acquire another document? That's what the Rajbam learns. In other words, just like you see, it's so easy to acquire a document, you don't even have to lift it up. As soon as you own the land, you automatically own a star. So let's say I have a debt instrument that I want to sell to you. You don't even have to touch it. I could just write you another document saying that you're purchasing that instrument, and that should make it yours. Because we see to acquire a star is an easy thing. Answers the Gemara, no, it's not such an easy thing. Agav shani. Agav, the kinyan agav, which means is another way of saying along with the land, that anything being pulled by land as an acquisition is much more powerful. So if you buy land, you can pull along with it metaltal and movable items like a magnet. But a star, to acquire a star, you need something more. You can't just write a document along with it. You have to have Mesira. You have to actually physically hold on to it and lift it. How do you know that? The Hamatbeya coins. The Leiniklim Bechalipin. Coins, if I have money, I can't make a barter exchange with it. In order for you to acquire my coins, you have to make a Hagba or something like that. It's the hardest thing to acquire, coins. Va'agav ara nikni. And if there's a kinyan agav, it works for coins. For example, the Gemara gives you a story. Rapapa was a rich person, and he had deposited in a bank in Beichazoi 12,000 gold coins. Okay, Rapapa had 12,000 gold coins, and he couldn't make his way to the bank to pick it up to Beichazoi. So he entrusted, and they didn't want to send it because it was too large of a withdrawal. So Aknin Leil Rav Shmuel Bar Acha Agab Asrei de Basra. So he had this Rav Shmuel Bar Acha say that he gave the threshold of house, a little piece of land in his house. He says, Rav Shmuel Bar Acha, you own this piece of land in my house. And along with owning this land, you acquire this matbeyas, this deposit that I have in Beichazoi. So now the money automatically belongs to Rav Shmuel Bar Acha. And Rav Shmuel Acha is a trustworthy man. He's going to go make the withdrawal and bring it back to Rav Papa. And this trick worked. He also, when he was coming back, or on his way back, Rav Shmuel Bar Acha, after he made the withdrawal from the Beichazoi people, Nafek Lapei Atavach. Rav Papa went to greet him to Tavach to retrieve the money back that Rav Shmuel Bar Acha withdrew, not on his behalf, but actually Rav Shmuel Bar Acha owned the coins because he acquired the coins because he actually acquired a piece of land belonging to Rav Papa. So we see Matbeas work because of the kinyan of Agav. So, but that's the kinyan of Agav is very strong, and therefore with Agav you could even acquire a star, but a regular making a star to acquire another star, that doesn't work. You have to actually physically hold on to the star and lift it up. When you buy a ship, you don't own the antiki. What is antiki? My antiki. What is antiki? Papa iska de begava. Any cargo that's on the ship, when you buy the ship, you don't own the cargo that's on the ship. That's something a separate sale. Okay, now let's go back into the Mishnah. Moches akorein, if someone sold a wagon, right? A wagon usually is attached with mules or animals pulling the wagon. Okay, we're going to see it in a second. So then, loy moches a produce. You didn't sell the mules. Moches a produce. If you're selling mules, loy moches akorein. That doesn't mean the purchaser owns the wagon. Mochas a tzemed, if you're selling the yoke of the animal, loy mochas a bakar, you didn't sell the cattle. Mochas a bakar, but if you sell the cattle, loy mochas a tzemed, you didn't sell the yoke. Okay, a yoke, cattle, whatever you agreed upon verbally, that's what's the sale is. Now, what could be the problem? The problem is that, let's say he says, they verbally agreed that he's buying the wagon. But then he gave him an absorbent amount of money. Let's say he gave him $10,000. Now, the wagon itself is not worth $10,000. Maybe along with the mules, it could be worth that. Still, since verbally he only committed selling the wagon, and then he took $10,000, that doesn't mean that the purchaser now owns the mules that go along with this with this wagon. That is the opinion of the Tanakama. You only follow what came out of the seller's mouth. If he said karai, then only the wagon is part of the sale. If he said semed, the yoke, only the yoke is part of the sale. But Rabbi Yehuda said hadoyim eidian. Let's examine how much money you paid for it, and we can assume what's a wagon worth, what's the mule worth, and what exactly is the purchaser put down as money, and then we can figure out that if it was included in the sale. And there, Yehudis goes on and said, Ketzad. Let me give you an example. Sell me your yoke. This is the yoke, by the way, a picture of a yoke that's on the animal. He says, sell me this yoke on for 200 zuz. Hadava Yedua, everybody knows that a yoke is not worth 200 zuz. Maybe it's worth 50 zuz. So why is he selling? Why is he buying it for 200 zuz? Because he's assuming that the animals go along with the yoke. So that's Rabbi Yehuda how decides such a case. The Chacham said, "Ein hadomim raya." You don't look at the purchase price and how much he's paying for it, because that's not enough of a proof. If the guy said yoke, that's only yoke is included in the sale, nothing else. So the Gemara says like this: Tani Rav Tachlifa b'Amarava kamed Rababo. Rav Tachlifa taught a brisa in front of Rababo, and the following brisa said, "Mochas a keren, mochas a produce." If you're selling the wagon, then the mules go along with it. So that was the brisa said. So Rababo said, Rababo asked him, "Oh, this was part of the person." But our Mishnah says that it doesn't go along with the sale. So how could the brisa that I found on old brisa disagree with our Mishnah? Our Mishnah says it does not go along with the sale, and the brisa says it does. Amalei. So the Rav Tachlifa said to Rabbo, "Ismeye, should I erase this brisa? Because not every brisa was truthful. Maybe this one got it all wrong." Amalei. So the man said, "Loi, don't get rid of the brisa. Don't get rid of the brisa. Titargei masnichem ba'adukim bay. If the mules are attached very much attached to the wagon, so then they may be included in the sale, even though the guy only said I'm selling the wagon. But if they're attached to the wagon, they could be included in the sale, and that's why our Mishnah is discussing when the mules are separate from the wagon. So once they're separate from the wagon, then we can say like the Chamim that the mules are not included in the sale. So the Mishnah said that if you're selling the tzemed, so then the bakar is not included. So the cattle is not included. So if you're selling the yoke, the cattle is not included. Hey Chidami, what's the case? It doesn't understand. Is this a language issue over here? Ilema the correlate simda ulbaka pakar. Is it the language that people talk? A yoke is called a yoke, and cattle is called a cattle. So pshita, then our Mishnah is very straightforward. Simda zabanle, you're only selling the yoke. Baka loy zabanle, you're not selling the mule, the cattle, because you already said I'm selling you the yoke. Nobody ever mentioned about cattle. Valid the correlate nami lebaka simda. Sometimes people call cattle yoke. So kula zabanle. If the place is that everybody, when they say the word yoke, it means the whole package with including the cattle. So then everything should be included, and not everything. Not everything should not be included. Everything should be included. Answers the Gemara Leitzricha. Our Mishnah is very different. The Asra the correlate simda ulabaka baka. In a city that they call a yoke, and cattle a cattle. Right? Most people do that. V'ikanami, but there's a subset group in this city, the correlate lebaka simda. They will call the whole package with cattle, they will call it yoke. So we don't know which side of the fence this person is, the seller is. The seller can say, I meant only to sell the yoke. But we're concerned that maybe he's part of the group that when he says the word yoke, he means to include cattle with it, because some people in the city call, by saying the word yoke, they automatically mean the word cattle. So Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says that you look at the value of the money. How much is he paying? There's no proof with the money. Just because he's way overpaying for something doesn't mean that he's paying for the cattle itself. Maybe he's only paying a lot of money for the yoke. Says the Gemara, if you're overpaying for the yoke, then the seller should have to return the money. The ein hadam raya have a bittul mekach. Then the whole sale should be nullified, because if I rip somebody off by an exorbitant amount of money called aino, it's more than a sixth. So then I have to return the money. In the Mishnah says ein hadam raya. It seems that the Rabbanan seem to say that the transaction is valid transaction. We go to Ayin Chesam and Al. Are you going to say bittul melech Rabbanan lesrei? The Rabbanan don't hold that if you overpay for an item, the transaction is invalid. The law, that true? But now we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Huda says, that if you sell a Sefer Torah for an exorbitant amount of money, or an animal, or a pearl, there's no such a thing of overpaying. The Chacham said, only these things, there's no such a thing of overpaying. But everything else, if you overpay for something, then according to the Chachamim, the whole transaction is nullified. So why did the Chachamim seem to say that the money is not a proof? It seems to imply that this transaction is valid. So the Gemara says, "My ein hadam raya." That's exactly what the Chachamim meant. What does the Chachamim mean by there's no that the money is not a raya? My ein hadam raya, ein nami diktani to have a bittul mekach. The Chachamim, that's exactly what the Chachamim said, because he overpaid for the yoke, and only the yoke was part of the sale. So since you're paying so much money for a yoke, the whole sale is invalid. The Ibaya said, if you want to say, I could say that the sale is valid. Ki amar Rabbanan, when do Rabbanan say, I know bittul mekach, that you're overpaying and the sale is invalid? B'chidesha das toya, when you could legitimately make such a mistake. If it normally costs $5 and you pay $7, or if it normally costs $6 and you're paying $8, I can hear such a mistake, so the sale is invalid. But if something costs $5 and you're paying $200 for it, so that's not, we wouldn't nullify the sale. Maybe you're just gifting, that you just have a nice way of giving a gift to the seller. If it's so much money that nobody would make such a mistake, then the transaction is not invalidated. In fact, transaction is valid. Because I might think that the whole reason why he's overpaying is because he has a nice way of giving a gift to the seller. So you way overpay for something, and that's a nice way of giving a gift. So that's what the Chacham meant when he only bought the yoke and the cattle is not included. Okay, we'll stop over here. I pass by the Mishnah.